Ready? Okay, we'll go ahead and call the July 10th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. I'll do a quick roll call. Hoffey? Here. Shoemaker?
Here.
Kellogg?
Here.
Gallion?
Here.
John's on vacation and Dave is unavailable. We sent out the June 5th, 2024 meeting minutes. Was there any comments, corrections on those? If not, we'd need a motion to approve those.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Kellogg?
Yes.
Shoemaker?
Aye.
Gallion?
Aye.
Hoffey? Okay, first item to come before the board is a change of zoning district request for 50 No Name Street. Mitch and Deb Krosky own that. It's currently zoned to R3. They're proposing to change it to the special use district, which would be more appropriate considering it's commercial property in the middle of a residential district. What they're proposing is a massage therapy / fitness center. Did I send you all they had like a business plan. Did I send you that narrative?
Yeah.
Okay. So they've got half a dozen or more
Yeah.
different instructors and classes, and
That was already a business. Why would anything have to be changed?
It was a
used to be a
dance.
laundromat, a dance
Yeah.
school.
it was a dance studio most recently.
Yeah.
And the way our code reads is once it's considered a non-conforming use. Like commercial property in a residential district is a non-conforming use. Once that non-conforming use has been abandoned for more than 2 years, you can't resume it. So if they would have left for 6 months and come back with another dance studio, they'd be fine. But this is a clear change in use, and it's been quite a while since there's been any activity there. So that's why they're doing it this way, or have to do it this way.
And it's just for that property, because I did get somebody who asked me, does that make
Yeah, it's just
everybody?
their property,
And
correct. Sent out the surrounding property owner notifications, no comments received on it.
You need a motion?
So we'd be recommending approval to council, then we'd have a public hearing, and
I move that we adopt the new zoning.
I'll second that.
Shoemaker,
Aye.
Hoffey,
Aye.
Kellogg,
yes,
Gallion.
Aye.
All right, good to go.
but
Aye.
A couple other things I wanted to talk to you about. I had also sent out 2 draft ordinances that we've worked on. The first one, let's go with clarifying chapter 1173. You got that one? You're familiar with that
when
one?
did the email come? I didn't see it. When did you send
It
that?
was with the packet.
Where I didn't print.
July 5th, if you want to see it.
Okay, thank you.
So this is based off of the storage unit discussion. The current heading of 1173 is additional residential zoning district standards. So by that heading, no commercial property would be able to have storage sheds. And that's not the intent at all of the code. We want to correct that.
Right. Whoops, you go ahead. That's fine.
So that's what taking out residential, we truly feel it was a misprint or a typo
Okay.
at some point.
Okay.
So this should just read 1173 additional zoning district standards, because it talks about a lot of other things as well. So that's what this is for, and then replacing E to read the use of all accessory structures shall conform to the definition above. No accessory structure shall be used for human habitation or for any use not consistent with the accessory use permitted in the Millersburg codified ordinances. So there was some discussion of what stops somebody from using one of these as a Airbnb type thing. I think that's a good idea.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
To preclude
Yeah.
those. My question to you guys, are you good with this as proposed, and do you want to add any other specific, do we want to make we had passed the new requirements for the shipping containers to be used as a storage facility. Do we want to make it clear that that applies to both residential and commercial? Or should commercial have a separate standard for than residential? And if so, what?
I'm all for just the separation of residential versus business.
Well, I am too, because I have a so based on the original ordinance, technically, he should have never even had that down there.
Yeah,
And so that's what triggered,
and no commercial property in town should have any.
no.
And they do. They're all over the place.
So we've
be
got,
an issue.
right, and so, and I just wanna say this, I still wanna see inside that one. I still wanna see what's in there.
Mm.
I wanna see what's in there. So he should have never been able to put it up to begin with.
Yeah, I think that the problem with us not adopting the same standard about businesses being able to have like a regular storage shed, which this
Which-
would need to be changed. for,
Right.
Would be that like, for example, Pizza Hut wouldn't be able to have the storage shed behind theirs that they do without the adoption of this, right?
Right.
Because really,
Technically, should they have that? The storage shed?
Probably not.
No.
And I'll 100% take the bullet on this one. When
Okay.
people call in and ask about a storage shed, sure, I know the setbacks are, whatever zoning district you're in, that's what the setbacks are. I never realized that this section, if you look online, in the index,
I've looked at it.
it says 1173, I'm sorry, our Title VII supplementary zoning regulations, 1173 additional residential. I don't look at that part because I know that it just says storage sheds are permitted to be, as long as you're meeting the setbacks for whatever district you're in.
So our solicitor's not here. That ordinance that was written, there's a reasoning behind a business doesn't have stuff in a storage. What's that reason?
I don't know.
The way I look at it too, if you go, north of Millersburg, or I think it used to be the Weaver property, and they have all those pods up there for storage, people to rent them. If someone did that here in town, I would say yes.
you would think that that would be an acceptable use of a
Yes.
piece of property?
It's just like storage buildings, you rent space and.
Yeah, but they're behind, boy,
I'll say from my standpoint, I have a different opinion than you do. I think businesses should be able to have storage sheds or other things on their property if they need to store something. I mean, let's assume that Pizza Hut for a second wanted to cut their own grass at their location. Would you expect them to put their mower in the back part of the building where the food is? Where should they store something like that?
why was the original intent of that ordinance that wasn't allowed?
That's where I don't think this was supposed to say additional residential district standards. I think it was just supposed to say additional zoning districts.
You know how many of those could end up popping up behind businesses?
They don't have to be permitted.
Yeah.
And then you know what they're gonna say? Well, Pizza Hut has it, so we have to have, yes, so we have to have more.
If
We
they
have
need
to have, I think you have to have more guidelines as just saying yes.
And that's
Because then
what
we're in the
I'm,
mess that we're in.
that's
with
what I'm
JJ.
asking, what should
Okay.
those be? If it-
I think I don't think we make a
Are
decision
you
tonight.
saying you don't think commercial properties should have a storage building?
I think that there's gonna have to be guidelines
Okay.
and I
So,
just,
yeah.
I just don't think we willy-nilly
Oh, no,
tonight
no.
make that, I think discussion.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I wanted to get on, is always things go too fast and then later, we haven't thoughtfully put something through, we haven't
Right.
gotten enough discussion about it, and then there's complaints and there's other things, so you take your time, there's no rush on this decision. I'm just saying, you can think about how many places could what needs to be the thought, even have Bob Hines talk about, what are things that could happen, is that every business then going to put up some building, that their building isn't big enough. I don't know what Pizza Hut has in there. What's in that shed? Do you know?
I don't
I'd like to
No
know.
idea.
I want to know what JJ wants in his thing.
Well, cigarette tubes. I mean, he told us
You
that.
told us that, right?
Well, he told you that it was Amish, but he didn't say that at the meeting.
Amish?
Yeah, when I
Good.
asked you.
They're big into packing their own.
Because I asked him why all of a
Yeah.
sudden he needed so many more of those. I would want to, here's the deal, if the person wants to put up a thing, I think we should know what's the purpose of it's for, what's gonna be stored in there.
From what perspective? Just to know, or?
Well,
for-
why, if they have a building, and that building at some point gets to the point where they can no longer have the room for whatever in there, what's happened?
Yeah, I'll just say I disagree. I don't
Well, that's
think
fine,
that,
you can disagree.
I mean, I don't think that, if my property, for example, as a business owner is large enough that I can meet setback requirements and I meet the criteria for what it has to look like and what it is, does it really matter to you if I store boxes or a lawnmower in it? That's not really the village's business, in my opinion. If it's storage for my business, I can put in it what I want to. I can't have somebody live in it, and that's part of the ordinance, which is there. It covers the same thing as it does for residential use.
On JJ's container down there, Barnhart's agreed to it, Mullet disagrees. But one of the things I have, the setback was 5 and 10, you said?
20 and 10, and he was, 20 and 10 is what's required, and he's way beyond, he's way closer than that. He was.
Because,
30.
I mean, and I mentioned down there at the Tobacco Head, I said,
He was
what if
7.
Barnhart sells? The new owner doesn't want it there like it is.
Yeah,
So, you know, he should
that's a
honor
never-ending
those.
chase, though.
I don't know how you guys feel about setback requirements, but in my opinion, if somebody's requesting one of those, and the current property owners all agree that like it's not a big deal, the next buyer is purchasing that piece of property knowing that that's already there.
But would they have to agree to it?
No, because they're
Okay.
purchasing a piece of property that already has something, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
But the setback from Mullet's property back there, if he says no, what do we do?
It's still up to you. He can object to it. He can say.
What's
he's
the
not in
bowling alley
favor of
people
it.
said yet?
They haven't responded, period.
I'm gonna go talk to them.
He
For
can,
this,
I'm sorry, he can
No.
object. That's why we notify people whenever
Right.
there's action.
Mhm.
They have the right to be here and state, or send something in saying they're not in favor of this happening.
Right.
It's your job to decide if, you know, if the whole neighborhood comes back.
Yeah, if they're a
violently,
bunch,
no,
then-
that should give you a pretty good indication of what your answer should be.
Mm-hmm.
If you get people on both sides of the fence, that's a tough call for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
You have to determine if it's in the best interest of everybody or not.
So let me ask you this, so when he says, I don't have that application in front of me, but obviously when they put the application in for the thing, they have to say the purpose.
Yeah.
So obviously
so-
we ask, what's the purpose of it for?
Yeah, like JJ's,
Yeah,
it was
so we do ask the purpose.
storage.
Product or so, I forget how he worded it. Product
said retail.
storage or-
He said retail, it said retail.
Wasn't he gonna sell some of those wrappers to other people? They said they're so hard to get.
I don't know about.
That's a
that.
whole other ballgame too, then now you're also selling stuff out of them? I mean, that was some of the things that concerned me. There's a reason that application says the purpose.
Mhm.
So there's a reason for that, okay, that's my property, and as long as I require the setbacks, I still think, I mean, listen, I think, there's the other part of me that said, okay, you can say whatever, but that's not how that works. If I still have to, you own your property, you still pay property, you still have to answer to things as to what goes on, so I don't see why making sure what could happen down the road that you're just saying, okay, and then something goes in and somebody's upset about what the neighbor saw coming in and out of somebody's shed.
What's he got in that barn? Why didn't he tear it
No
down?
idea.
I wondered about why not use the barn, but I'm
Yeah.
sure to redo that wouldn't be as secure. and
Yeah,
it
the
wouldn't
question on
be-
the application says proposed use of the property, not the storage container or the specific thing. It's what's the, so that is a retail property. I don't think that was answered wrong. But I just think that if I put that I'm putting it there for extra storage, I don't think that I should have to tell you that it's bankers boxes and money straps. for example.
Mhm.
Like, what if that changes in 2 years?
I understand that.
Am I supposed to refile with you?
No.
So the setback for mullet, we know Nick is against it. Where do we go? I don't understand that part.
Oh, we're more
I
talking
mean,
about
I
the ordinance
can't
right
agree
now,
to-
though. I
well-
mean,
I just want, wow, the residential versus business, complete separation.
I do too. I want separate.
In what way?
I don't know, my gut just tells me when you got a business thing and a,
So like the B1 or B2, let's use B2 since that's where Tobacco Hut's located, that started all this. Let me pull that up real quick. The setbacks for side yard, when it abuts a non-residential zoning district, which that property does, is 20 feet for structures. When abutting a residential zoning district, it's 50 feet for structures.
okay.
Minimum rear yard, 30 feet for structures, 10 feet for paved areas.
So we do have different setbacks for business versus, residential.
And like R3, the minimum side yard setback is 6 feet. And the minimum, the rear, I believe is 20.
But if a
for
B2
a
butted
shed,
up
it
to an
could-
R3, it would still have to have those
It'd be
larger
the
setback
higher, yeah.
requirements.
So I think the more stringent,
So that satisfies
Setbacks are
more the
there.
difference as to
Yeah.
whether,
Yeah, like if you're putting a business in the middle of a residential
mhm.
or that butts up to any residential area,
mhm,
there's a little bit bigger of a buffer.
there's a much larger
Mhm.
buffer. Yeah.
Hmm. What else is covered in this 1173? Like what other things are applicable to?
Sorry, 1 second here. Accessory buildings and structures, home occupations, group residential facilities, private swimming pools, residential fences and hedges.
We don't have to decide it tonight. We
No,
don't have
no,
Dave
this is
here.
discussion.
We don't
Yeah,
have John here, so
Yeah. that's-
I want more,
yeah.
I want more discussion about it.
Yep. Kelly, one of the things she wanted me to mention, her take on, not necessarily this specifically, but to address when work is done or something is done prior to
Mm-hmm.
getting approvals or permits, she suggested having a stiffer fee,
I
a
agree.
financial, she threw out $250. So a zoning permit is $30
Mm-hmm,
now.
mm-hmm.
If somebody does something without a
Mhm.
permit, if it's approvable, that's fine. They pay whatever the
Mhm,
number
mhm.
is, and are educated not to do that
Absolutely, and that'll get around.
again.
Yeah,
I think
I
it'll
would be all for that.
effective.
I do too.
It,
It'll stop the,
it seems really harsh at first, but we've got our website. We're
Mhm.
here. We're here all the time. Call.
mhm.
There is a burden.
Absolutely, there's a
property owner to
burden.
find
Getting
out.
meetings done, absolutely, there's a burden that gets on to everybody once scrambling around trying to get it approved.
Right.
So I agree with that.
So be thinking about
Okay,
commercial versus
Okay.
residential, come up with
Okay.
some ideas,
okay,
and we'll keep addressing that.
okay.
Excuse me. The other proposed ordinance was 116603. In the SU district, there is 116603 Part B has a residential density restriction of no more than 4 units per acre. This is something Bob threw out as we've been talking about promoting housing, trying to help with housing in the community. What if we just eliminate that just for the special use district? So your residential districts wouldn't change at all. It would still be 1 dwelling unit per lot. But in the special use district, we could go well beyond 4 dwelling units per acre, which is pretty big. If you think about, for instance, Brambley,
Oh, uh-huh.
there's 24 units out
Okay.
there on like 2 acres. Way beyond, now obviously that goes way back years ago. The nice thing about the special use district is any new developments have to come to you guys. This board has to approve it. It's just something you'd look at, the layout, the looks of things. Stenwood development is a prime example.
Yeah,
They're on it, there's condos on, or duplexes on individual lots. And they're spread pretty decently. They're not crammed together like some others are. So that's something you just review as part of the site plan, development plan, and say, look at the density is way too high here. Can we spread it out further, or say, yeah, it looks good?
okay.
Does that seem reasonable?
I mean, it would probably be attractive then to people wanting to, that they would have, that would make it more
I would agree.
inviting.
I think it would help with any
Absolutely.
potential tiny
Yep.
home
Yep.
communities
Yep.
we've talked
Yep.
about.
Yep,
That you could put a lot more of those on
Yep.
fewer acres.
Yep.
And it would be okay. I mean, it's not gonna be sardines, you know?
Well, certainly in my development, my lot is 0.2 acres and there are 5 houses that are
Yeah.
0.2 acres apiece.
I
So you
sit
have
on,
5 1,200 square foot homes
On an acre.
yeah,
1 acre
Basically, yeah.
there.
Those lots really that big up there?
They're 0.2, mine is, yeah.
Mhm.
Wow.
I mean, my yard's only 0.4 and it seems huge.
Mhm.
Mhm.
My backyard's like yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Okay. The last thing I have, speaking of Stenwood, they send in a proposal. You guys can look at those. The 6 lots outlined in red, these 3 and these 3, they're asking if we would consider allowing them to add that to phase 1. So they could get started on them.
Nope. He's gotta do the street first.
This is in.
But not from the end of my lot up to Forlow. It's not done.
Oh, this street,
Yeah,
okay.
I saw him and he talked to me the other day. He says, you got a lot of increased traffic. I said, yes, and there's no rhyme nor reason. It's busy all the time. He says, well, blame it on Doug Burgess.
You're talking this one?
Going
Are
back
you-
to see Doug.
Are you talking this one, Bob?
Yeah.
That's the one that you'd like to see.
Right, yeah, because it's almost impossible for 2 cars to pass without going in the grass.
So from where they started up to the intersection, getting that widened out.
Right.
I mean, you could make that, tell them, yeah, we'll allow you to add this to phase 1 once you complete the road.
I'm sure he would.
I mean, I can't vote on it anyway, but I talked to him and I said, I heard you may be going to single family. Well,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it.
He did tell me that
Does he?
for phase
That's
2.
that's where the need was.
Yeah, that was the need, no
Yeah.
kidding.
But he sold almost all of them. They're back there, right? Are they
Wow.
all in now, Bob? Are there a lot of people living back there now?
I asked him how many were sold, but he goes, well, I got this many on the roof, but he wouldn't tell me how many are sold. I guess Mary would know.
Yeah, we
for-
could, I'm thinking, I mean, don't hold me to this, but is there 18 total in that first phase, I believe? Individual units.
I think there's more than that. But there's still a lot of construction going on. I mean, there's
Yeah.
Home Store, Kime, and You name it, they're bringing stuff in every day.
I'm thinking around a dozen or better, or occupied, or have transferred, I should say.
Was green phase 2 anyways?
Yeah,
green lots?
yes.
Okay.
So the purple was phase one.
I think that's phase 3 maybe.
Oh, that's
I think
three.
These are all one.
Yeah, the white.
Oh,
White,
okay, so
yes.
these were ones,
Yes.
okay. And add this on, oh, I see, that makes sense. So he's wanting to, well, that kinda makes sense, what he's
Yeah,
wanting to do.
it kind of finishing those
I
corners.
mean, that kinda, other than Bob's concern,
Mm-hmm.
but I would assume that he'd wanna make you happy, Bob.
No, Ruben doesn't like me.
Oh, okay, well,
Those people that live back there do not stop at the stop signs. But right through. Everybody else that's lived there for a long time, they stop because it's a law, but not those people. Just cruise right on through.
well, there's an accident.
I don't think that your request is, I don't think that's unreasonable.
I don't
think
either.
that he would finish that street out.
I don't
given
think that is
that
either.
They'd probably have to do it for phase 2 anyways
Mhm.
before they started.
I agree with, I think that that should be,
Okay.
And when's he gonna mow his weeds?
Will he have to submit like a formal request to planning and zoning?
Well, so
to do
I'm
that?
not sure. I don't know how it works when you add to a phase in a subdivision. That's more of a county, how they do the deeds and everything. So he'll have to find all that out.
cause that's already been approved.
Yeah,
The plans
phase-
have already
yeah.
been approved.
I don't know if they care about phases.
Okay.
Right, because they're already platted in those.
It's,
Yeah.
it's typically if you're adding land from outside of a subdivision, it gets different. They'd have to come back for formal approval. But that's not the case here. Adding or removing, obviously,
Mhm.
makes it complicated. I don't think that's unreasonable at all to require him to
No.
No, that'd be
finish
good.
that, so that's fine, we'll pass that along. Have him pursue what it'll take to do this, go
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah.
If the county requires formal approval, it'll come back.
Yeah.
All right,
So the only other thing is as far as what JJ's things is kind of sitting there for now and we're just kind of waiting for whatever we change the ordinance.
yeah, and he was told that in a meeting that I wasn't able to be there, but I think considering we allowed that for the Hirschberger property on Port Washington as
Mhm.
well, that precedent's out there, so,
If you got a response from Nick that it's still there,
yes.
I had some people call me that followed the meeting, wanted to know why it was still there, and I just said that we're redoing ordinance.
Well, and to Bob's point, even if we decide that this accessory, building ordinance applies to commercial properties,
Mhm.
we still haven't addressed the setback for that specific
Mhm.
property. So even if this goes into, even if we would decide that 1171 should apply to
Mhm.
commercial and
Mhm.
residential,
Mhm.
there's still the setback issue with that one that to me
I mean, right now, it shouldn't be there.
is a little bit concerning.
Right now, it shouldn't be there.
Right,
And, I mean, so it shouldn't even been there. And like he said, neither should, and Pizza Hut shouldn't be there.
no, it shouldn't have been there.
and that's exactly, we made Hirschberger apply
Mhm.
and then wait till the
Okay.
ordinance was changed, and then he came back in for
Mhm.
approval.
Mhm.
That's what'll happen with JJ's.
But like he said, we still have to address the setback.
Right, and that would be the time you'll do it.
Mhm. So we'll wait for everybody else to, think about this commercial versus residential. What could pop up, what could be a situation of where it's apples to orange, it's,
Nate, like you read those other things that are in 1171, are there conflicting requirements in like a business district for fencing?
No, I don't believe so. I'm not aware of.
It's like I know, like in the residential district, you can't put a fence in over,
Mhm.
whatever the
you have to
height
get
is
approved,
or
you have to get.
whatever it is, and you get it approved. But if you're in a true business district,
No, because it's specific to residential properties, and 117305 is residential fences.
So those things that have residential in their title, 173,
Right.
you would not want to apply those to a business district.
No.
Those would be just to the residential
Specific
property.
to,
Okay.
correct.
So, I don't know when that first ordinance was written.
04. Well,
And you
it was
wouldn't,
adopted.
so I wonder how it all got convoluted as residential commercial. I mean, it wasn't like sheds just started coming around and.
Yeah. Well, the freight container thing was a whole new,
Yes.
And that's what that's why I really think we need to think about this freight container thing,
tiny
because
homes. is
I
another
think,
big thing.
I think there's gonna be people wanting to live in those, the storage containers.
Well, they're using these, yeah, they use them to build tiny homes and.
Right, so that's what you really gotta think everything through. And that's where you
The
do have to,
Hirschberger property,
that's
that's
what's gonna-
Downpour, Washington, outside of town, they
Yeah.
use those to build
yeah,
a pretty cool
Yeah, it's cool.
dwelling.
that's cool.
So, yeah, I think we're definitely due to revisit a code
Mm-hmm.
revision,
Mhm.
review.
Yeah.
We're 20 years in.
Especially if it's been, if
20
all
years,
these were
yeah, that's
enacted in
20.
2004.
That's 20 years ago,
Life's changed a whole lot. in
absolutely.
20
And that's
years.
why we wanna be thoughtful about this. We
Right.
wanna think a little bit as to what,
Mhm.
so that, because,
We've made a lot of changes to it
Yeah.
over the years as things, it's an always evolving thing. You can't write something and expect it to be perfect for 10
well,
years.
but you know, but we're just, and you're never gonna minimize well, so-and-so is allowed to do this, and they were allowed to do it, and that's what the backlash was from the that,
Mhm.
well, there's, so-and-so was allowed to do this, and so-and-so was allowed to do that,
Mhm.
and things that just, we didn't think about, or didn't, and then you're always gonna have that, but to have an answer, or at least have it as written in stone as you can, or
Hope to, yeah.
hope to, but you're not going to, because there's
Right.
gonna be something else pop up in the situation that somebody's gonna question, or that it's, that's why there's lawyers, there's always loopholes in these,
Yeah.
when you write legislation and.
There's whole law firms
There's-
that specialize in zoning.
Yeah, exactly,
It's
it's
how it is.
exactly, that's why, you really gotta be as thoughtful as you can, and, I mean, I guess who would've thought about that? But maybe it was a good thing, because then we realized what we needed,
Yeah,
what needed to be
Yeah.
done
absolutely.
for consistency and fairness and,
Yeah,
so, that everybody, the other two guys will have, I think they'll all wanna have input in that too.
yeah, I think that's more than fair.
Yeah,